Today, I'd like to show off a probability calculator. You can find it on itch.io/probability calculator from Will9371. That's my username. This is available on WebGL, so you can just play it in the browser, or you can download a version, which is a little bit more stable and doesn't rely on an internet connection. As an example, I'll show off calculating the Drake equation. This is the chance that intelligent life exists on other planets. I type in that label and that shows up on the node. And I could put more of a description here if I wanted to use a lot more words than fits like that. Now, I can just set a probability directly, but that's not particularly interesting. So I'm going to actually calculate what this is based on other assumptions that I have. What are some conditions for this to be true? I'll branch this node by pressing B while it's selected. And we require a couple of conditions. This is now a calculated probability, so I can't change it directly anymore. My options are to set it as an intersection or as a union. By default, it's an intersection, which requires that all of the source nodes, things that are leading into it, are all true. Alternatively, I could make it a union, which is that like any one of them is true, then this is true. For now, intersection seems like the right choice. If I think about a couple of conditions in no particular order, one is that single-celled life emerges, and another is that multi-celled life evolves. And a third condition is that life passes the great filter. That is like a civilization doesn't destroy itself with nuclear war or something like that. So if anything needs further explanation, I just put that here. Now I can set the probabilities on any of these nodes, and that'll then affect the calculation further up. So if I say this is at 20%, and then the multi-celled life is very unlikely, then that goes down further. And then if life passes the great filter, maybe I say this is more likely. However, one thing I'm seeing right now is that putting these all as like an and conditions together doesn't quite makes sense. I mean, it sort of does, but really multi-celled life depends on single-celled life, and the great filter doesn't really occur unless there's multi-celled life. So I'm actually going to rearrange this, and I'll disconnect some of these nodes. I left-click on one and right-click on the other, and I press C, and then I'll connect that one. And right now, I'm having a problem where certain clicks are not detected. This is a little quirk of WebGL. It's an error hopefully I'll fix later on, but it seems to go away when I switch to full screen. So I'm just going to do that now. So disconnect those. The way you make a connection is you left click on a cell and it becomes green, and then right click on a cell and it becomes red. And then when I form a connection, it goes from the green cell to the red cell. If I wanted to make a connection the other way, left click there, right click here, there's a connection. So I'm going to connect these up sequentially. Okay. And then there we go. Now we could say each of these things has different conditions. So multi-celled life requires single-celled life to emerge, and maybe it requires some other things. But off the top of my head, I don't know what additional requirements are needed for multi-celled life, but besides single-celled life existing already. So I'm going to express that through the use of biases. A conjunctive bias is the chance that there's some other condition I'm not thinking about that also needs to be true. And by default, this is 1. The mysterious other condition is definitely going to happen, so it has like no impact. So by lowering this down, I'm saying that there is a 50% chance that there's some other requirement besides the ones that are connected that also need to be true, and so that now this is less than this one. Actually, for now, I'm going to raise my guessed probability at single-celled life up a little bit so we can see these effects. Life passing the great filter also requires additional nodes, such as the existence of civilization emerging. So I'm going to branch this again by pressing B. Alternatively, I can just create a new node without automatically connecting it by pressing N, and that just creates another node that's disconnected. If I want to get rid of a node, I can press X. If I press X on a node that's already connected to things, it removes the connections as well. Society emerges. might be another requirement. Then I'll put some conjunctive bias. I can continue adding nodes. So off of this single-celled life, I'll make a couple of branches. I could say one possibility is that single-celled life emerges because life emerges from natural processes, or perhaps this occurs because life reaches the planet by asteroid from elsewhere as a description, e.g. by asteroid. This would be a place where I would use a union, because if either one of these true, then this happens. And there might be additional nodes that are additional OR conditions that can make single-celled life even more likely. So I can add a disjunctive bias. So this is some mysterious other condition that I can't think of that adds to this. And maybe I can add some conjunctive bias here as well. I could keep adding more and more nodes to this, keep messing around with the probabilities, and the impact goes all the way up and until you see the end result way up there. The value of having something like this is it forces you to think about all the various factors that go into your mental model of something and to state what your intuitions are. It also lets you see how the various events all connect to each other and the implications of your beliefs. You can also play through hypotheticals to say that if this is definitely true, how does that impact everything else? This was a very simple model that I'm just kind of creating off the top of my head. For an example of something that's a little bit more thought out, I have presets that are built in. So this is one that I've put together on the probability that the world is destroyed by AI as, say, P-doom. In this model, they could happen by AI going rogue. People use it in chaotic ways, like terrorists creating a super virus and so on. A tyrannical dystopian government takes over the world. There's various different possibilities of a union. And then each of these has a bunch of other nodes that it comes from. One other feature that I haven't covered yet is any of the inputs can be inverted. For example, right here, the chance of alignment being solved, that is making AI wanting to be helpful, is true if the Goodhart's law does not apply and there is deception and there is interpretability. As the probability of this goes up, the chance of this node being true goes down. It's inverted from what it would be normally with an intersection. And you can see that because the connecting node has this little X through it. So you can see a bunch of X's on this chaotic misuse. If there's AGI and there isn't a singleton and there isn't a world governance and there isn't some pivotal act. The way you can set these inversions is by clicking on the text below. So this blue text right here, that X went away, and now it's just using the 85 rather than the inversion of 85%. This whole text down here shows what's happening whenever you're clicking any node that has sources. It describes what the logic is down here. Now, suppose you've created a network that you want to save. I get out of full screen mode here and I click save. I'll create a description of this. So let's say I'll call this pdoom as the name of the file. Click create new. And I get a download right here. If I look in my downloads, I can see this shows up. And this is just saved as a text file. If you want to load a model, let's click this load button. And then you bring up the file explorer. Then you can pick one of the ones that are out here. Maybe I want to load this test example. And yeah, there's just a few nodes put together. So these are all just JSON files saved on the computer, whereas the presets are built into the application directly. There's a reset button here, which will shrink this back down to just a single node at 50% in the center of the screen. I can move the whole setup around, like if there's, takes up more space than I have on the screen, press and hold the middle mouse button to move this. If I just get lost, I can press F2. Again, if you ever see an issue where certain things don't click, maximizing the screen will make that go away. The download version just doesn't have that issue. Thank you very much for watching. Play around with this and let me know any feedback you have as to things that can make it work better, or if you come up with some model that you think is really interesting, whether it's about AI alignment or anything else, anything that interests you, and you put a lot of time and thought into it, feel free to send me the JSON file and I can integrate it as a preset for other people to see. My plans for continued development on this project, some just UI and quality of life, bug fix issues, but the bigger, more ambitious thing is making a gamified version of this where you have policies that you can enact, which shift the bias on some of the nodes or setting the probabilities on some of the leaf nodes directly, trying to get up-level node below or above a certain target value. Thanks for watching, and I hope to update you again when this develops further.